Hey, so for this question, we're really just testing your ability to read the supply and demand graph. So they tell us the figure to the right shows the market for U.S. made televisions both before and after the government imposed a tariff on imported Korean made TVs. So we have over here, you can see they show the supply line and they show the demand line for U.S. televisions, and they show that the demand for U.S. televisions changes after the tariff is imposed on the Korean television. And as we've done in other questions, other parts of this chapter, you probably know that tariff, the reason this is because that tariff is going to decrease the supply in the market of Korean TVs. Because the Korean manufacturers now have to pay an extra tax, so they're not going to send as many TVs to the U.S., which means that those Korean TVs will become more expensive, and people in the U.S. will now want to buy the U.S. TVs instead because they won't be as expensive as the Korean TVs. So then the demand for the U.S. TVs will shift upward or shift out to the right. So we go from the old demand, the line that's labeled D, to the new demand under tariff, which is labeled D tariff. Then what they ask us is, according to this diagram, the revenues of the U.S. TV manufacturers before the tariff was imposed were how many $billion? So we're looking at before the tariff, so we're going to look at the regular D, not the D tariff, and our supply line. And all they want to know is what is the revenue? And you can just think about this from a business perspective. What does revenue mean? It means how much money did you make? So we can use our previous equilibrium where the supply and demand meet here, and we'll look at how many they sold. It says they sold a quantity of 5 million. So see the horizontal line here is quantity, and it's in millions per year. So at the pre-tariff equilibrium, so we're just looking at the demand before tariff and the supply line. The equilibrium's where they cross. We see that they sold 5 million TVs, and what did they sell them for? They sold them for $300 per unit. So the vertical line here is price in dollars per unit. So they sold 5 million TVs, and they sold each one for $300. So what they want to know is, all right, then how much money did they make? So if they made $300 for every TV and they sold 5 million TVs, I'm just going to pull up my calculator here and I'm going to multiply. So they sold 500 TVs, 500 million TVs, but we'll just multiply by a million when we're done. Actually, let me just go ahead and put the zeros in there. 500,000. There we go. 5 million. I think I said 500 million. Whatever. You get what I mean. 5 million is what it shows on the graph. So they sold 5 million TVs. So I put in my 5 million times they made $300 per every TV. So 5 million times 300 will tell us how much money they made, right? Makes sense. And so, whoops. The calculator tells me they made $1.5 billion off of TVs that year. And that's all they're asking for. They want to know before the tariff, how much did they make in billions? So notice that it asks for $1 billion. So we're going to say $1.5 billion. Check the answer. Good job. Yay. Does that make sense? So we just take how many they sold, multiply it by how much they sold them for. And then it asks after the tariff, how much did they sell? So we're going to do the same thing, but this time we use the tariff demand line. So we move out to this new equilibrium here, and we see that now they're selling 6 million per year, and they're selling them for $310. So the price goes up, and so does the number that they sell. So I'm going to pull up my calculator again, clear that out, and say, all right, if I sell 6 million, all the zeros, if I sell 6 million and I sell each one for $310, how many dollars am I going to make? And now it tells us that answer is 1.86 billion. So you can, if you're having trouble reading these numbers, this is right, 1,000 and then million and this would be our billions here. Thousands, millions, billions. So $1,860,000,000 or 1.86 million or billion. Sorry. So I'm just going to go put that in my box here. 1.86 billion. Check my answer. Excellent. Thanks to the tariff, revenues for U.S. producers have risen by $360 million. So they're making that much more money. So these results suggest that the tariff on Korean-made TVs benefited the U.S. buyers or producers. And that's just a question of who's doing better now. So notice that with the new demand, the prices actually went up. So the buyers are not actually benefiting. Who benefits are the television manufacturers, which we just figured out in the last part of the question, that the manufacturers before the tariff only made $1.5 billion, and after the tariff they make more. So the tariff is actually benefiting those producers. They're making more money now after the tariff. Final check. Excellent. There we go. And that's that. Let me know if you have any more questions. Feel free to stop by office hours to talk about this further.